Reason they're not admitting it is because the law enforcement authorities interviewing all the witnesses determined it didn't fucking happen. Where did this come from? The internet. Someone made it up. I think it was Laura Loomer who made it up. Laura Loomer wasn't there. Laura Loomer is not a firsthand. Laura Loomer is not a firsthand witness to the shooting. Okay? Why the fuck are people listening to someone who just made something up very clearly? Is being first to market with a biased conspiracy more important than actually trying to fucking arrive at a truth? What the fuck is happening? We saw a version of this on the liberal side as well, and that's still ongoing with the Charlie Kirk stuff. There were a lot of people who immediately was like, oh no, the shooter's a groyper. Tyler Robinson's a groyper. And it fucking worked. And if you recall at the time I said, I don't think Tyler Robinson is a fucking groyper. I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that he's actually a groyper at all. Like, and turns out he actually wasn't, you know, let's be real. But the problem, and that issue is still ongoing because Candace Owens was basically able to single-handedly redirect the narrative back to Israel being responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk and that Tyler Robinson actually is innocent. You said he was a groyper day of. I like that your name is Jeremy 5 Cahill and you are just making shit up. I said there is a likelihood that he could be a groyper, but judging by his social media activity that we know of, he's most likely not. I said that there is a lot of animosity amongst groypers against someone like Charlie Kirk, but that's not enough evidence that this person specifically is a groyper. Okay? Not only did I say he wasn't, I even tweeted that he most likely wasn't, as a matter of fact. Don't know why you have to misremember. Don't know why you are engaging in this kind of thing. Having said that, it was not lost on me that the idea that he might be a groyper was favored by a lot of liberals and favored by a lot of left-wingers, and that conspiracy actually was so powerful and so overwhelming that it even caused right-wingers to dial back the narrative that this was actually a leftist trans Antifa activist shooter. Okay? That's the reason why they very quickly, when they found out that the Tyler Robinson was from good stock, white family, Mormon, MAGA dad, they turned around and said, hey, maybe this is a pray for his soul type situation and not a we must kill all transgenders type of situation. You feel me? So even when it's advantageous to make up a fake bullshit response, especially because both liberals and leftists are also in line with this kind of conspiratorial thinking, I choose not to do that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there is less and less interest in maintaining an actual investment in the truth and trying to analyze the situation with hard evidence that is readily available. It's much nowadays, I think like just pushing false information and being first to market in a biased direction is a much better way to combat the right also doing that. How long is this stun lock? This is not a stun lock. What the fuck? This is perhaps one of the most consequential parts of discourse in 2025. What the hell? It can be reduced to lying is OP, please nerf. Okay, but it's getting more and more OP. The reason Brown took down some web pages is because you put a student's life in danger with your baseless lies. Get out of our fucking city, you tragedy exploiting shameless fucks. In any case, I cannot believe how quickly the right seizes on this kind of shit. I remember thinking that you were jumping on conclusions. I believe you did call he's a fucking groiper at one point. Sorry, I can't run the tape. I just remember because at the time I was a new listener and I didn't know what the fuck a groiper was. No, you're misremembering and you're either mistaking me with someone else that you were watching or you're just straightforwardly misremembering this. Okay, you're most likely confusing me with someone else that you were watching because I was one of the few places on the left that didn't immediately say that this person was a groper. As a matter of fact, I said that while there is a small chance that he might be a groper, all of the evidence that I have seen so far leads me to believe that he is not a groper. Okay? I mean, there's tweets about it. I tweeted at other left-wing journalists and whatnot as well with my disagreements. Not that it matters. Yeah, people were mad at me. I watched like all hours of your, and I remember you saying it's a possibility that people should stop saying he is for sure one because there isn't enough evidence at the time. Yes. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that misinformation in either direction is unironically a more effective way to combat misinformation in any direction is unironically a more effective way to fucking combat right-wing misinformation. Like left-wing misinformation is more effective than combating right-wing misinformation with the truth. Okay. I said Tyler Robinson Kirk's alleged shooter came from a Mormon family in both law enforcement and the military, but I'm not so certain if he himself was right-wing. A lot of the memes posted on the casings are ironic or of left variety, different than previous far-right shooters. It's still too soon to tell, but this is very important to understand as well. Yeah, I saw that as well. I don't know how to weigh that over the Chow Bella, though. Like, that could be Gopnik posting, which is across the political spectrum. Need more info. Gorpers usually hail previous shooters, and they have way more aggressive slogans they use to signal, though. Okay? That's it. Like, I'm not in favor of fighting fire with fire. I think that we mustn't drop our investment in the truth. Okay, I think the truth is what is more important than anything else, even if it doesn't favor our political position. That's something that I will always work towards. I might get certain things wrong in my assessment. I might make incorrect predictions every now and then, but the reality is I will always try my very best to make sure that I am conducting analysis off of hard evidence. Okay? I know that misinformation spreading is more fun and actually unironically more effective, especially nowadays. Like I said, I keep stressing this point, and I hope people understand this. Spreading misinformation is more effective in combating right-wing misinformation. That is just the truth. Spreading left-wing misinformation is more effective in combating right-wing misinformation than spreading the truth and dialing in and trying to establish verifiable evidence and conduct your analysis off of that. I'm telling you right now, Candace Owens has proven that reality. Okay. Is it more effective in the long term, though? I think in the long term, there is no consensus reality. That's what I'm saying. There's no consensus truth. There's no consensus reality. I will continue to shout from the rooftops about, dialing in and trying to figure out exactly what's going on, because that's my own personal autistic stubbornness, I guess. But that's what I care about more than anything else. But I will openly admit that lying and spreading misinformation from a biased perspective is unironically more successful in combating right-wing misinformation.
Don't have any solid leads on the identification of this subject.
It appears as though he may be scoping things out, but it's more so he's like buying time. He's almost waiting until he knows where he wants to go and what he wants to do.
He's engaging in that pre-attack surveillance, that right before, making sure it's a soft target, making sure there's no law enforcement in sight, and just rehearsing his attack right before he goes in that building and commits it.
Breaking news now in the manhunt for the Brown University shooter. Now in its 5th day, Providence police are now looking for a second person who was, quote, in the proximity of the person of interest. Wow, a lot we are learning minute by minute as this goes on. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. John, good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well, Sandra. I'm John Roberts in Washington, and this is America Report.
Why don't you participate in lies and propaganda to achieve left-wing goals? Great question. First of all, propaganda as a neutral term is something that I'm not shy about admitting that I do. It's just marketing, right? Secondly, the reason why I don't engage in falsehoods or lies to achieve left-wing goals is, one, because it's unethical, and two, because I personally believe the truth already has this sort of bias anyway. So you don't need to do that. You need to only do that. You need to only do that if the truth does not favor your worldview. That's why the right, more often than not, feels the need to lie to make up a point. Okay? And you guys are saying keep credibility, but honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. That's my point. Credibility is no longer matched. Credibility is no longer calculated off of how truthful your claims are. It's calculated off of how far your false narrative, no matter how fucking ridiculous it is, spreads. Okay? This is precisely the reason why Candace Owens is one of the most seemingly credible political commentators on the internet. Okay? Back in the day, credibility was obviously held up as a standard by your performance and how truthful you were, how much you actually cared about making sure that you land on the truth, making sure that your analysis was backed by facts that were verified by evidence. Okay? Credibility no longer is tied. Credibility is no longer a metric that people care about, rather. Or if you want to think about credibility, if you do care about credibility, people, I think, falsely attribute relatability and how far your message spreads to credibility. You're more credible if your ideas go spread far and wide.
That headline comes as new video lays out a timeline of the potential shooter's movements in 15 different clips, up to 2 hours before and just minutes after the deadly mass shooting.
We have Fox Team coverage for you kicking off right now with Paul Morrow, who is on the ground digging into this new timeline.
But first to our national
You're
correspondent,
too
Brian
doomer,
Yennis,
man. This is too online. Househead. I don't think this is doomer. I think this is simply how things are. And you're right, this is too online. But I think the world we live in is increasingly more online than ever before. Okay? Also, I'm not saying I'm going to drop what my standards are. I haven't, and I will continue to seek out the truth. And yes, while Twitter is not real life, as I've said over and over again, and that normies are not entirely invested in the narratives that blow up on the internet, obviously it's impossible not to recognize someone like Candace Owens and what she's done to normie brains. Okay, it's just Twitter and Twitter style conspiratorial thinking that is first and foremost biased is now the prevailing way that people get their information. It's all about being first to market with a specific conspiracy theory that that people can lean into. And this administration has made Twitter more real life than ever before. What is this? The grift continues. Oh, yeah, I don't really care too much about this now. I think Candace Owens is probably cutting away at her credibility amongst the conspiratorial wing by calling off the character assassination of Erica Kirk after having a private closed-door meeting with Erica Kirk. So,
Providence with the latest. Brian?
John and Sandra, good afternoon. This news breaking within the last half hour. The Providence police releasing new images of a second person. Now, I want to be careful with how I use the language, so I'll read what they just posted on X. They said investigators are asking for the public's help in identifying and speaking to the individual shown in these photos who was in proximity of the person of interest. We have a press conference, that is a news conference, I should say, that is scheduled for 5 p.m. today. There'll be a lot of questions.
I think you're dead wrong on this. Just like hypocrisy and violent rhetoric, truth and credibility are graded on a curve that is heavily biased to the right. They don't care about being right or wrong, but that won't stop them from pointing out when you were wrong. No, I don't disagree with that. Okay? I don't disagree with that. I've said that over and over again. There is so much more scrutiny if you are even remotely on the left or associated with what people consider to be left-wing positions, like demonstrating empathy for people, right? This is correct. Right-wingers who very clearly don't care about hypocrisy will weaponize false hypocrisy even. Like in moments that are not even hypocritical, they'll just simply say hypocrisy anyway. I mean, there's no greater evidence of this than like people saying, oh, you want fucking Medicare for all? Well, guess what? You own a house. Fuck you to Bernie Sanders. Okay? Oh, you think better things are possible? Well, fuck you. You own a house. At no point did anybody say that like ownership over a home is antithetical to being a progressive person, being a left-wing person, being a socialist person. It's fucking ridiculous.
About that. Now, these new images come a day after the Providence police released new enhanced video of the primary person of interest we've been talking about, 5'8" with a stocky build, walking around the nearby neighborhood as early as 10:30 a.m., 5.5 hours before the shooting. They're hoping someone out there will recognize the way that he walks and carries his weight. Sometimes he's seen wearing a satchel, sometimes he's not. Investigators say the video released is the best video they have. Yeah, they're claiming that the fact that he put his hands behind his back implies that he's Middle Eastern, by the way, which is insane. Now, back out here in front of the Barris and Polly building, I want to give people an idea of the timeline and sort of what we now know based on the FBI's information. Behind me is the north entrance, sort of the back entrance, loading dock, and parking lot. The FBI has focused a ton of energy on that entrance. We've seen people in Tyvek suits and cameras looking at that. It's believed, based on what we know, that the gunman, primary person of interest, the suspect, came out of that entrance or exit and started walking this way and passing this dumpster. Now, over the last few days, we've seen FBI agents in Tyvek suits inside of that dumpster. This is a school parking lot. Now, after he goes by this way, according to what the FBI timeline says, that person of interest is seen on a surveillance video 2 blocks away, and he crossing Hope Street. You can see him running through crossing Hope Street, which is behind that vehicle. I don't know if Dave can show that pole to the left of that car, but there is a surveillance video at 4:03 p.m. that shows the primary person of interest running past that pole across Hope Street to Waterman. The person of interest is seen for the last time at 4:06 p.m. going down Waterman Street. Now, it's really interesting to note here, the cameras have been a big issue in this investigation. Dave, if you just look around this parking lot to show everybody, there are no cameras that we can see out here, right outside of the Barris and Hawley building. You can see there are no cameras that we see visible to the eye. So that is something that has been a big sticking point in this investigation. The only camera, again, that catches this primary person of interest is down the block all the way over there, running out. So that is where we're at now with the investigation. John and Sandra.
All right, thanks. And we look forward to more updates as the hours and days progress. Brian Yennis.
We're in a... it was difficult to determine where the line is with these things. Almost no one wants to criminalize gambling as such, but like this also hard to call it too online when even the mainstream media is embracing the post-truth engagement farming models of prediction markets. Exactly. Like the very fact that you got CNN doing like Kalshi prediction collaborations, like Kalshi gambling market collaborations implies that like we have officially arrived at the post-truth world.
Brian, thank you. Sandra?
All right, let's bring in retired NYPD inspector and Fox News contributor Paul Morrow, who's also live on the scene.
Also, the AI boosting, the AI enhancement is one of the dumbest things you could possibly do in moments like this, for the record. AI enhancement has led to wrong people being determined as suspects over and over again. It happened with Tyler Robinson as well. The AI does not actually have any credible method of figuring out who this person is. It just makes up a face. Okay? The AI can hallucinate, and in this circumstance, it does. Because it has no way of knowing. It has no way of knowing what's behind or what's behind the pixels. Like, it just doesn't know that at all. So it just makes up whatever the fuck it thinks is, you know, whatever the most common facial structure that it can fucking generate. And considering that AI is trained on other people's faces, this kind of AI enhancement will always put a random person's face on it.
In Providence, so much I want to ask you about based on what we're now learning. First of all, the university and the local police there told students, staff, administration that there was no immediate threat on campus, that they should feel secure while also remaining vigilant. Now learning they're looking for a person of interest connected to the person of interest. I mean, are people safe that are still there?
I mean, it's very hard to say. Just let's remember that they sent everybody home. The school has told everybody that finals are canceled, school is over for the semester, and that's apparent here on the streets. They're relatively deserted. To be clear, the building that we're at, which is where the shooting occurred, is right on the edge. It's realistically the first aspect of Brown University that you hit when you walk out of the adjacent residential neighborhood. There's a neighborhood right here. It's very affluent, a lot of houses that are behind walls, well set back, which I think explains the paucity of private videos that they've been able to get from Ring cameras and the like. So whether or not they're safe, the police very clearly, they're trying to walk that fine line between creating an element of panic, but reassuring people that they're doing everything that they can and that people should go about their lives.
Paul, okay, so you mentioned students leaving campus. There's been some who have taken issue with that because obviously with the lack of cameras and video surveillance footage, many are wondering, are they letting some of the students go that could have been eyewitnesses that could help aid this investigation? Should there be further interviews or more interviews that haven't happened yet, Paul? Is there a risk to letting all these people go home?
Yeah, there is. You know, you're absolutely right. And we saw this. I know I've name-checked it before, but the public knows it, so I use it. The Koberger case. That happened University of Idaho at Moscow. And same situation there. They canceled the rest of classes. The kids that were going to the school, they all dispersed. And as a result, when it came time to do some interviews, they had to actually rely on police all around the country to go knock on doors and ask, were you there and what did you see? I suspect there's going to be some of that here as well. And there's also the fact that, as I said, because this is adjacent to a residential neighborhood, during the weekend, in the immediate aftermath of the event, because it happened on a Saturday, a lot of these people were not home. Some of them might not still be home because they may be gone to Florida for the season or something like that. And that's why you're seeing video dribble in, because they're canvassing very hard, going further and further out, trying to get a hold of people that have either just returned or maybe even getting a hold of them wherever they are and saying, can you get somebody to let us in and access your Ring camera? Or they're going right to the source and saying, we need a consent from you because we're going to pull video from the video company.
I mean, you think that could happen faster than it is, but I don't know enough to be a critic of that.
Well, it's been multiple days at this point, so who knows where the fucking shooter is? Maybe the shooter's in Florida, or maybe the shooter's in Mexico by now, or
I also want to
Mexico, Canada.
Ask you about a discussion I just had with my colleagues downstairs on Outnumbered. Kayleigh Mackin and I were discussing, obviously, you know, there are going to be parents who are going to be very concerned about sending their kids to a university where we're learning.
Well, fear not, guys. It was just a bunch of Brown University students that got killed, and not like a healthcare, private insurance healthcare executive. So it's you know, oops.
There wasn't an abundant camera
It's
presence. We're learning to.
It wasn't the president's favorite podcaster. It wasn't you know, it wasn't a healthcare. Yeah, it wasn't a right-wing podcaster. It wasn't a healthcare executive. So who cares? It's fine.
Pull enough surveillance footage to catch this person this long after this crime happened. As far as armed security on campus, Kayleigh and I were wondering what you can tell us about that since you're on the ground there. Is the security on campus at Brown armed?
Brown has its own police force. They're an actual gun-carrying police force, the Brown University Police, and they actually responded. Ultimately, they were the ones who would be responsible for activating the sirens, etc. They have a chief of security as well. And I think, Sandra, and you know, not to use an unfortunate metaphor, but you're right over the target, because you gotta say to yourself, how is it that in a building that is not only at the edge of campus, which says to me you got to be very cognizant of people wandering in and out, not even shooters, just trespassers, people that are homeless or people looking to do a burglary. How is it that the outer salient of your campus, which is where one of the most busy classes that they have is held, how is it that the ingress and egress doesn't have a simple camera, the kind of Ring cameras that we're even talking about in a private home? Costs next to nothing in the course of a university budget. They don't have that. On a day that there were a number of things going on a Saturday during final season, they apparently had either propped open the door or literally deactivated the card access during the day, and there was no security guard. So you really do have to question why it is that the building was so insecure and why we're not hearing more about that. Let's remember, a place like Brown drives the economy in this town. And I don't think it's any accident that there have been so many politicians at the lectern, and yet we're not hearing a whole lot from Brown Security.
I mean, where's the head of security protocol for the university to explain what the protocol was and what the protocol is? Final question. I mean, does it stump you that there's not just more eyewitness video footage? I mean, we were also just discussing you can't go anywhere now without, 20 cameras up and catching something, anything that is happening at any given moment anywhere. Why have we not seen any further video of what went down that day, that hour?
Well, like I said, the school, he fled into the residential neighborhood from the edge of the school campus, so you can take the school off the table. And as I said, then you're down to the local residences. There are other things you can hope for here relative to video. A lot of car dash cams have video these days. Somebody might have got picked up. Hopefully they're looking at that and they're hoping people will come forward with something like that. But the fact that video is still, sort of coming in, I think shows you they are pressing on that front. We got this new image of a person of interest. They're not couching that as a person that replaces the original one. They seem to be saying maybe somebody who knows something or somebody who might be involved. And there's some hopeful signs in that video. I only took a quick look. We just got it. But he's holding a bag. The original perp was holding a bag as well that then is not in some of the other videos. Where'd that bag go? This
But the
person
person
also
of
seems to be
interest,
walking.
sorry, Paul, you're generating so many more questions, I'm sure, for viewers at home. But the person of interest yelled something, correct? And we're still not told what that person yelled while carrying out the crimes?
They're trying to claim it's Allah Akbar, right? That's what it is?
Yeah, reportedly he did. And, you know, that's another question I have, because I'm wondering if this study hall was either live streamed or maybe some of the students in there were recording it. That would be common so that you could review your notes. I'm wondering if everybody in that room has been interviewed to say, did you record the session so that we can review what he yelled or if he did yell? So look, there are a lot of questions here. I'm sure they're pressing on all this. And all I would say, Sandra, as you and I talked about yesterday, I believe, remember the Koberger case. For 6 weeks, everybody said these guys don't know what they're doing. They're chasing their tails.
Yeah, they're saying reportedly when the fucking investigators have said that that's not the case. If that is the case, wouldn't there be, if that is the case, and they're trying to find any sort of identifiable thing about the background of the suspect, wouldn't they literally reveal that? They're basically revealing ring camera footage of not just the potential suspect, but now people that the suspect was around. They're obviously very desperate. Why wouldn't there be fucking footage of him yelling? Why wouldn't they actually reveal that footage? I don't understand. It makes no sense. This has not been a narrative that I have seen beyond. This has not been a narrative that I've seen beyond Twitter. I've only seen that on Twitter. Nowhere else.
And then when it all came out, everybody was quite impressed. So let's give them some time. When you don't get an immediate solve, that doesn't mean the case is over, and I still think they'll get there.
So it sounds like you're saying have faith in the process. You're on the ground. You're gathering information. You see the investigation at work. I guess my final question is, do students come back from the break if this guy's still on the loose?
I think they're going to have to. At the end of the day, the school's got to operate. I mean, obviously, that's a call that the university is going to have to make. But I would imagine you're going to see a significantly different security posture at this university going forward. And frankly, from where I sit, that's pretty long overdue.
Wow. Paul Morrow on the ground there in Providence, Rhode Island for us on that. So many questions. Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno.
Where's her ring?
Oh, here it is. Kash Patel dragged over interview with girlfriend.
It's definitely coming, so I wouldn't worry about it.
FBI Director Kash Patel is facing backlash for the timing of the release of an interview with conservative political advisor Katie Miller, the wife of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller.
Do you think certain attacks on you or your relationship affect your work?
This nonsense about, oh, you're taking a private jet. We're taking the FBI plane because Congress 20 years ago said FBI directors are not allowed to take commercial air travel, ever.
Some have said Patel's chummy tone amid an ongoing FBI manhunt for the Brown.
The optics of Pockets' girlfriend coming out while the FBI is failing at a manhunt are just awful. I'm sure the podcast was recorded weeks ago, but this is a big thumbs down.
University mass shooter was out of touch. Among the critics is California Governor Gavin Newsom, who wrote, "Good to know he's got time to hop on a taxpayer-funded private jet to record a podcast with his girlfriend."
Right now, in the middle of this massive crisis that his people are working, you're forcing them, expecting them to work 24 hours a day for days and days on end, to be appearing like this, talking about your personal life is, it's really a dispiriting message to the troops.
According to Miller, the interview was conducted before the December 13th shooting.
Ken, you also have new reporting along with Carol Leonnig that Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino says he'll leave his job.
RIP, RIP, folks. Some of our goats are leaving the FBI. And by some of our goats, I'm of course referencing my personal goat, Dan Bongino. Dan Bongina down. Dan Bongina down. Ladies and gentlemen, the shot heard around the world.
Early in the new year. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. Bongino has told a number of colleagues and his close staff that he's gone, essentially. He's going to announce it fairly soon. We've reported that some of his effects have been moved out of his office. That's according to more than 8 people that we've talked to. Look, everybody I've spoken to at the FBI believes he's gone. He didn't comment on it. But look, he's been...
It's literally... Imagine he didn't tell anyone shit, and this is how he found out he's getting let go. No, I'm pretty sure he was signaling. Since the Epstein file release that harmed his credibility in the conspiratorial right, his credibility as a podcaster in the conspiratorial right, Dan Bongino has been incredibly depressed and staying out of the public sight. That's the reason why I was jokingly saying, is he dead? Did Kash Patel actually kill Dan Bongino? What the fuck's going on? Breaking, President Trump confirms the reporters that FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino is leaving the agency. Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show, Trump said. Yeah. Yeah, you were right. He wants to go back to podcasting. Yes, he said it. I wasn't like prophetic in this assessment. I was just listening to what this man was saying. He straight up fucking said, being the deputy director of the FBI sucks. I want to fucking sell supplements. I want to sell supplements while talking shit. This shit sucks. It's not even a self-demotion. Haven't you noticed that the fact that Katie Miller is also trying to podcast right now, you haven't realized that all these guys want to do is sell t-shirts and supplements? That's the highest thing you can be in the conservative sphere. Nobody wants to actually, they don't have any ideological goals, chat. They don't have any real, goals. None of them, with the exception of like Stephen Miller, actually want to do something, actually want to change the American trajectory. They just want to do fucking podcasts and they want to chirp into the wind. Their only goals are improving their standing in society, making as much money as possible in the easiest ways possible. That's it. And they're not above using the government offices as their own personal upward social mobility advancement project. The highest stage, especially on the right-wing movement, the highest achievement you can get to is just being a conspiracy podcaster. That's it. There is no ideological commitment to a coherent right-wing project. There is no, like, there are some who are invested in this. Steve Miller, I would say, is definitely truthfully invested in a white supremacist vision for America, and that's what makes him so scary. But even his wife doesn't give a shit. His wife basically just wants to be a podcaster. Yeah, Dan Bongino campaigns on Trump releasing the Epstein files. Trump wins, takes control of the FBI, puts Dan Bongino second in command of the FBI. Dan Bongino cries about the Epstein files' lack of release, but not because like he truly wanted to find out the truth or anything, but he complains about how it harmed his credibility amongst the conspiratorial right, so that when he inevitably goes back to podcasting once his tenure is over at the FBI, people are not going to trust him. So he basically was like, I got to get an early exit out of here before this thing calcifies and people know me as an actor that is not credible. And remember, credibility in this situation has nothing to do with the truth. Credibility in this situation has everything to do, nothing to do with the truth, but everything to do with reach. Okay, remember that. And when people don't trust you anymore as a conspiracy theorist, because you are in the halls of power and you don't actually deliver on some of the promises that you made to your audience, then ultimately you're not going to be able to hawk as many supplements as you want to.
An incredibly controversial pick for deputy director. That's a job that's has always in history been reserved for a career FBI agent. Dan Bongino was not that. He was a Secret Service agent for a while, and then he became a right-wing podcaster. He was not popular inside the FBI. He was not popular with the Justice Department and with Attorney General Pam Bondi, and they had some clashes over the handling of the Epstein files. And now it appears that he is gone. One thing he can point to, he did try to put pressure on the FBI to try to solve the case of the pipe bombs planted outside RNC and DNC headquarters before January 6th, and the Bureau did solve that case based on career.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Another thing that's incredibly sad. Another thing that is incredibly sad is that the one thing that they were supposed to, the one conspiracy they were supposed to solve, turns out the guy was fucking MAGA. The guy who did the RNC DNC pipe bombing, the suspect that they couldn't find for years, that everyone was speculating was a federal agent, was actually a MAGA loyalist. So what the fuck? So the one thing that they thought that they could get a W on didn't even help them.
Investigators. So he is taking credit for that. I should say, though, that the suspect that they've arrested and named does not support the conspiracy theories that Bongino was advocating as a podcaster when he said that the FBI knew things that it wasn't disclosing and that it was a quote-unquote inside job. There's no evidence of that, Chris.
Ken Delaney, and thank you.
We're going to begin with tough information, new information on the deaths of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle.
All of our favorite right-wing conspiracy theorists are failing hard. Yeah, here is the clip of Trump also openly mentioning Dan Bongino's, or confirming Dan Bongino's leave.
Oh, Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show.
Yeah, I said the right lacks a sincere ideological vision for America. It's pure self-interested grift. So, of course, the highest stage for any right-winger is going to be selling supplements and T-shirts while peddling conspiracies. If we go to war tonight, will you stream late? Maybe.
Yeah, I did.
My lib dad is so brave broken that he thought a radical Islamist killed Rob Reiner. Yeah. Rob Reiner's son has reverted to Islam. Is that what it is? Yeah, Tucker Carlson. Members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and it'll be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9 o'clock by the president. A member of Congress told me that this morning, says Tucker Carlson, by the way. My suspicion was that there is a likelihood that Trump will announce going to or waging war with Venezuela as well, for the record. MS Now was the one that got the scoop. They were the same ones saying Trump is looking for Kash Patel's replacement. Yeah, MS Now definitely has some libbed up insiders at the FBI for sure.
Is Trump going to start a war in Venezuela?
I don't know. I don't know when this program airs, the one that we're on right now. This thing's maybe live.
We're live now, and then
Okay.
it'll be posted immediately. So now,
my sense is, I don't know the answer. I've certainly been on the phone a lot about it. I have no power. I'm a podcaster, but I'm very interested. And so here's what I know so far, which is that members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and it'll be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9 o'clock by the president. Who knows, by the way, if that will actually happen? I don't know. And I never want to overstate what I know, which is pretty limited in general. But a member of Congress told me that this morning.
Is Trump going to start a war?
Do you think Republicans would bring the draft back if they do go to war with Venezuela, or do you think that would be political suicide? I mean, probably not.